Good morning and welcome everyone. Friends, as you're aware, this ULT meets every Sunday at 11 a.m. for a theosophical presentation of a particular topic, followed by a question and answer session. On the first and third Sundays of the month, we are studying The Ocean by William Quan Judge. This is a mythical and magical season of the year. It is stated that the atmosphere of the earth is once again young, both physically, psychically, and spiritually. It is renewed. This is the solstice. December was celebrated in the ancient times by all of the peoples because they believed that the sun gods of every nation incarnated on December 25th. And if you look at the historical evidence for Christianity, the church fathers in the 4th century AD chose this day as Christ Mass because they decided it would give them an opportunity to celebrate without interference from the pagans. But this is a pagan holiday from ancient times. Who are the sun gods? The sun, as you're aware, moves into the northern hemisphere, bringing light and renewed energy to earth, because the seed that lies dormant eventually will germinate, give rise to fruit which will ripen, and then its leaves give comfort, and also it can be burned for heat in the winter. So the seasons which are external are all signs of events that go within each human heart. The anahata, the soundless sound, which is ever present in each human heart, is imprinted with these great truths of humanity. Today's talk will touch on all these themes. Today's reading comes from The Light of Aging.
The reading from The Light of Asia. Lo, the dawn sprang with Buddha's victory. Lo, in the east flamed the first fires of beauteous day, poured forth through fleeting folds of night's black drapery. High in the widening blue, the herald star faded to paler silver as there shot brighter and brightest bars of rosy gleam across the gray. Far off the shadowy hills saw the great sun before the world was ware, and donned their crowns of crimson, flower by flower, and they felt the warm breath of morn and 'gan unfold. Their tender lids, over the spangled grass, swept the swift footsteps of the lovely night, turning the tears of night to joyous gems, decking the earth with radiance, broidering the sinking storm clouds with a golden fringe, gliding the feathers of the palms which waved glad salutation, darting beams of gold into the glades, touching with magic wand the stream rippled ruby, in the brake finding the mild eyes of the antelopes and saying, "It is day," in nested sleep, touching the small heads under many a wing, and whispering, "Children, praise the light of day," whereat there piped anthems of all the birds, the koil's fluted song, the bulbul's hymn, the morning of the painted thrush, the twitter of the Surrey birds starting forth to find the honey ere the bees be out, the gray crow's caw, the parrot's scream, the strokes of the green hammersmith, the minya's chirp, the never-finished love-talk of the doves. Ye, so holy was the influence of that high dawn which came with victory, that, far and near, in homes of men there spread an unknown peace. The slayer hid his knife, the robber laid his plunder back, the shroff counted full tale of coins. All evil hearts grew gentle, kind hearts gentler, and as the balm of that divinest daybreak lightened earth, kings at fierce war called truth, the sick men leapt laughing from beds of pain, and the dying smiled, as though they knew the happy morn was sprung from the fountains farther than the utmost east. And o'er the heart of sad Yasodhara, sitting forlorn at the Prince Siddhartha's bed, came sudden bliss, as if love should not fail, nor such vast sorrow miss to end in joy. So glad the world was, though it wist not why, that over desolate wastes went swooning songs of mirth, the voice of bodiless prets and booths. For seeing Buddha and Devas in the air, it cried, "It is finished, it is finished," and the priests stood with the wondering people in the streets, watching those golden splendors flood the sky, and saying, "There hath happened some mighty thing." Also, in ran and jungle, grew that day friendship amongst the creatures. Spotted deer browsed fearless where the tigress fed her cubs, and cheetahs lapped the pool beside the bucks. Under the eagle's rock that brown hares scoured, while under his fierce beak but preened an idle wing. The snake sunned all his jewels in the beam, with deadly fangs and sheath, the strike let path. The nestling finch, the emerald halcyons, sate dreaming, while the fishes played beneath. Nor hawked the merops, though the butterflies, crimson, blue, and amber, fitted thick around his perch. The spirit of our Lord lay potent among man and beast, even while he mused under that Bodhi tree, glorified with the conquest gained for all, enlightened by a light greater than days.
Thank you, friends. Here in Valmy, Washington, it's hard to believe, just based on the weather, that this is the second day of the winter solstice. But maybe tomorrow probably will be a different story as we get into the winter more heavily than today. Yeah, as this first speaker mentioned, Tom, thank you. This is a time of growth for nature, because this is the birth of nature, if you will, because this is the time that the sun has reached its lowest point. The nights are the longest at this time of the year, and the sun is being celebrated as coming back up. The days get longer, and this is the fall. This is the spring equinox, the winter solstice, spring equinox, and then the summer solstice, which is the days and nights are equal, and the fall equinox. So December 25 is a special celebration for all under the sun, as the first speaker also indicated. Here in the winter solstice, the days are the shortest and darkest. Darkness is more upon the face of the earth than ever. As the first speaker also indicated, it was on the 21st of December that the ancients thought the sun gods went down under the earth to help the souls, the seeds imprisoned there. Remaining there for 3 days, they came forth triumphant in all their glory on December 25. The sun god took on various names depending on the civilization. Egyptian, Chinese, and Hebrews, and so forth, they all around the world celebrated December 25 in one way or another. So the coming of the sun, as it returns from its journey southward and up and back to the north again, was understood by the ancients to be the birth of the sun. So this is the season of the birth of the sun, the coming back and bringing into fructification those seeds and plants needing sun energy for their growth and expression. Behind the sun, as behind every person and plant and so forth, there's a spirit. There's spirit, life, and intelligence, all three. It's interspersed. If we think of spirit and matter, we can't think of them as separate. They're both there are two ends of a spectrum. And within that, this student just drew this circle, we cannot comprehend infinity in our minds. So we have to somehow get it down to something we can recognize, and that's what the circle is. So if we were to just take a slice out of space, the universe, etc., we're going to have spirit and matter all interdispersed in there. And there's going to be beings and so forth. To the degree that that beings are attracted to whatever this electricity is in the universe of the zillion types, that's what they gather. Just like the old Indians saying, we have two wolves within us, and it depends on which one we feed, the good wolf or the bad wolf is the one that wins. To a great degree, we can think about that in a very simplistic term, because we take the food for our nourishment. We also get nourishment out of the air and everything around us. So that's the way this student comes to grips with the issues in a very basic way. But then these days, who among us thinks about this special day of the year like we're talking about today? So these ancient observances of this time of the year were twofold. What we might refer to today as esoteric and exoteric. Buddha used this twofold approach, as did Plato. HPB left us with the tools to continue with this approach, but many, even theosophists, are like deer in headlights when it comes to the fact. The esoteric approach involves initiation into the mysteries of those for those who are ready. The exoteric is for the others. The ancients had exoteric celebrations for all. These celebrations were associated with the birth of the sun god on December 25th, and the annual occurrence of nature we know as the winter solstice. For example, the Egyptians celebrated the sun cycle by the singing of hymns to the image of an infant symbolizing their sun god, then born again. Those with Christian backgrounds can certainly relate to that, because that's exactly the tradition that Christians have moved forward with. Today, during this season, holly and ivy decorate homes and churches, bedecked with evergreens. They are also bedecked with evergreens. This is a custom derived from the ancient practices of the pagan Druids, so that sylvan spirits might flock to the evergreens and remain unnipped by frost till the milder season. In other words, it would protect them from the cold winter. We find that use of evergreen trees, wreaths, and garlands as a symbol of eternal life was an ancient custom of the Egyptians, the Chinese, and the Hebrews throughout the world. This tradition evolved into today's custom of the annual Christmas tree, which was brought over to this country by German settlers. We've carried on the traditions of the ancients, but we have lost the meaning of the traditions. In our age, the religion of the people has become increasingly materialized and disfigured, invariably due to ignorance, greed, and the ascendancy of selfish personalities seeking position and control. Humanity has ever been plagued by this problem throughout the ages, despite the efforts and warnings of those who knew, including Plato, the Neo-Platonists, HPB, Mr. Judge, Mr. Crosby, and ULT students trying to hold the line. Though now universally observed by Christian nations as the anniversary of the birth of Jesus, the 25th of December was not originally so accepted. During the early centuries, Christmas was often celebrated in the months of April and May. which is pretty close to March 21, which is the celebration now of Easter. In the 4th century, as the first speaker indicated, Pope Julius I made the 25th day of December the Christ Mass. HPB called it an unfortunate choice. Sure enough, near the time of this choice, the mystery schools we heard about from the times of Socrates and Plato came to an end with the brutal murder of the brilliant philosopher and mathematician Hypatia, followed by the burning in Alexandria's of Alexandria's Neoplatonist school. There were other book burnings. There was libraries there and so forth that were burned in the school. And there was also the infamous Council of Bishops in Constantinople. By then, the Gnostics like St. Paul, who founded Christianity, had taken a back seat to the Orthodox section, which kept the people in ignorance as an enforced profession of faith in a carnalized and anthropomorphized Christ. And so the beat goes on. The ancient message of the Gnostics, upon which Christianity and other modern religions are based, was the same as the message of theosophy presented to the world by HPB. This message has the first key that one has to use in order to unravel the secrets involved in the mystic name of Christ. It is the key which unlocked the door to the ancient mysteries of the primitive Aryans, Sabians, and Egyptians. I am in the hearts of all men, says Krishna, speaking as the Logos in the Bhagavad Gita. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Asked St. Paul. In the Gospel according to Luke, we may learn that the worthy were those who had been initiated into the mysteries of the Gnosis, and who were accounted worthy to attain that resurrection from the dead into this life. In other words, they were the great ancients, they were great adepts of whatever religion, and the words apply to those who, without being initiates, strive and succeed through personal efforts to live the life and to attain the naturally ensuing spiritual illumination in blending their personality, the Son, with their individual divine spirit, the God within themselves. The more one studies the ancient religious texts, the more one finds that the groundwork of the New Testament is the same as the groundwork of the Vedas, of the Egyptian theology, and the Mycenaean allegories. In any age, but particularly in times of rapid transition, the human phase of past, present, and future contend with one another. They're locked in mortal conflict by the illusion of difference. The struggle is violent, for every old allegiance knows that its survival depends upon the body and not the spirit of human beliefs. Chief among the delusions of our own age is the Jesus image. Be ye perfect, he taught, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. He came to spread the tidings of salvation through self-knowledge. Yet with the passing of only a couple of millenniums, some have affirmed in his name that knowledge is unattainable and that all hope lies in blind belief. He came not to deny the law, but to fulfill it. Yet some of his priests turned his mission into a unique event which made belief in law impossible. He came to demonstrate the Christ in all, yet so misunderstood was his example, and so misdirected were the efforts of his interpreters, that few have been able to identify themselves with the Christ ideal. The West must focus more on the divinity within each person and understand that the Christ story goes beyond the life of one divine being. In the West, if the West were to do this, the meaning of the life of Jesus, his suffering and sacrifice, would at last become clear. So the death which the future has in store for the Jesus image is no death at all, but a transfiguration. From son of the Father, he must become a brother of man, one of many such brothers, and thus a reality in human experience. No teacher has suffered a fate more awful than Jesus did in penalties exacted by those who came to help. This fate will continue until man has come to realize that the purpose of the coming of greater depths like Jesus is to show us by example that we have the power within us to become like them. And we can look at examples that are in our current day. Maybe they're not perfected beings, but they come with the intention and they have clear motive of trying to get it right and continue this example, make it available to the people, and they get roundly criticized for it, even though they may not, there's nothing personal in it. So HBB points out that Christ, the true esoteric Savior, is no man, but the divine principle in every human being. He who strives to resurrect the spirit crucified in him by his own terrestrial passions and buried deep in the sepulchre of sinful flesh, he who has the strength to roll back the stone of matter from the door of his own inner sanctuary, he has a risen Christ in him. Whether he be heathen or Christian by birth, Theosophists refuse to materialize and degrade that which is the purest and grandest ideal, the symbol of symbols, namely the immortal divine spirit in man, whether it be called Horus, Krishna, Buddha, or Christ. We find in the key to Theosophy that Christos is not only one of the three higher principles, but all three regarded as the Trinity. The Trinity represents the Holy Ghost, the Father, and the Son. And within each person, we have the same kind of thing. This is our real self, which goes on from life to life, the Atma Buddhi Manas, in a nutshell. And the lower part of it, the lower four here, which is listed here, passions and desires, jiva life, astral body, and the physical body, is what a lot of people think constitutes our entire being. That part falls off, and at death, this part goes on, and this part goes on for partly, but but disaggregated, not like together we're in now a body. So Krishna and Christ are philosophically the same principle under its triple aspect of manifestation, which is somewhat to that. The primitive writers of what we now know as the Gospels knew the truth and the whole truth, but some of their successors had as certainly only dogma and form, which lead to the hierarchical power of heart rather than the spirit of Christ's teachings. This Christos principle doesn't just blossom in us. It takes lifetimes of self-induced and self-devised methods to bring out the principle. Regarding the Christos principle, pages 58 and 66 of the Ocean of Theosophy states, and when we either wholly or now and then become consciously united with Buddhi, the spiritual soul, we behold God as it were. This is what the ancients all desired to see, but what the moderns do not believe in. The latter preferring rather to throw away their own right to be great in nature and to worship an imaginary God made up solely of their own fancies and not very different from weak human nature. Goes on, although reincarnation is the law of nature, the complete trinity of Atma, Buddhi, Manas does not yet fully incarnate in this race. They use and occupy the body by means of the entrance of Manas, the lowest of the three, and the other two shine upon it from above, constituting the God in heaven. This was symbolized in the old Jewish teaching about the heavenly man who stands with his head in heaven and his feet in hell. The head, Atma, and Buddhi are yet in heaven, and the feet, Manas, walk in hell, which is the body and physical life. For that reason, man is not yet fully conscious, and reincarnations are needed to complete the incarnation of the whole trinity of the body. When that has been accomplished, the race will have become as gods, and the godlike trinity being in full possession, the entire mass of matter will be perfected and raised up for the next step. There's a story in the Bible that Jesus, body and soul, went into heaven. Now that literally we know is impossible, but when we think about it in terms of this, we see what is meant. So this is the real meaning of the word made flesh. It was so grand a thing, as in the case of such persons as Jesus and Buddha, as to be looked upon as a divine incarnation. And out of this too comes the idea of the crucifixion, for Manas is thus crucified for the purpose of raising up the thief to paradise. Now Christmas is actually a season of birth and of growth. It is a season of rebirth of the spiritual nature. This celebration of the birth of Jesus was made to correspond with this old knowledge of the past and ancient observances. We seem to carry on with the observances in some shape or form, but we have lost the knowledge we had. We have forgotten, and we do not apply to ourselves the fact of the recurrence of this real Christmas time, the season not only of the physical renewal of the earth and all beings, but also a return of the inner life and of impulse of a spiritual kind. As Easter is a celebration of the ascension of spirit out of matter, coming out here, crops are being planted and so forth, and coming into being, leaves are turning green, starting to turn green, and so forth. Christmas is a time when spirit has fully descended into matter and is ripe to spread throughout matter. Christmas is thus a time of rebirth. The life of earth is young, and the inner life has its rejuvenance and its growth. When we think from the cosmic level, we think of the whole of life. We find that day and night, summer and winter, life and death are the seasons of nature. But the perceiver, the experiencer of these seasons, is the self-conscious man, he who lives when the body dies, who is awake when the body rests at night, who is continually observant whether the body is awake or asleep. The man is conscious every moment. He sees recurrent waves of activity of one kind, then rest, then another kind, then rest, and so forth. He sees the return of his thoughts and his feelings, reinforced and strengthened in the second coming, or reduced and weakened according to the degree of energy he has given them. Always there is the return of impressions from hour to hour, from month to month, from year to year. It is the course of every being to follow the law of action and reaction, to proceed through the cosmic back of what which was before, plus whatever has been incurred in the meantime. There is no cessation of this law. There is an eternity of the progress which is not restricted to any particular form and which is within the means and reach of every individual. So even if we are so inclined, we cannot work for ourselves alone, nor progress by ourselves alone, but taking advantage of all recurrent waves and seasons of uplift, we may go on from one plane to another, from state to state, from quality of being to quality of being. We can start a tidal wave of helping and teaching others by right thinking, such as focusing on spiritual ideas, for right action always follows right thinking. A spiritual idea in the heart or in the mind is the beginning of the rising tide for that individual. In the time of the rising tide, we must acquire the power of concentrated effort which will hold us through the receding tide and give us a better standing when the tide rises again. This is the time of the year when the tide is at its highest. There are also tides in nature for races and civilizations. Every civilization has its beginning and its ending. The individuals who made up those civilizations, however, will come again with whatever they have gained. They will come on a better basis and from there go on a little farther. For us, a tide of recession has prevailed through many centuries. We are living in the Iron Age, which was preceded by better ages known as the Gold, the Silver, and the Bronze Ages. This Iron Age we are living in is an age of spiritual darkness, but in it we have to make a foundation for all that existed in the other ages. We have to bring into expression at that all that existed before and put the very highest of all that preceded into practical use. Not only must we pass through this Iron Age, but we must start a new Golden Age with all that we have gained. At the present time, our discoveries, our science, our religion, our social and national life are too focused on material things, are things represented by the lower self. The more the self-conscious person has gone into matter, the more he has closed his spiritual doors, because his self-consciousness and energy have been put into terrestrial objective things. But he must go through these stages and emerge from them, bringing with him all the knowledge he has gained while immersed in matter. And not only is his effort to gain knowledge for himself, but also to impart this feeling and understanding to the kingdoms below him in the manner which he uses, as he uses them. Then, when he moves up the scale of being, that matter too will be lifted up and become more fitting for his use. So, in the receding tide, old theological ideas have lost their sway over the minds of man. Minds are searching in every direction for that which is stable, permanent, and true. Nature changes only to the degree that we, over eons of time, help it change, but it is there solely for our development. So it's permanent, it's stable. They are looking for a knowledge which is feasible and practical. A tide comes for the presentment of such knowledge. A tide comes for the appearance of beings greater than we are, greater because at some time they took advantage of the rising tide to go far beyond where the ordinary person found himself able to go. These beings come at certain great seasons, as the heavens tell the story in the Masonic cycle. The passage of the sun from one sign to another of the zodiac takes a period of about 2100 years, the cycle of the coming of a great teacher. We need only to know that a great teacher existed at some time to count forward or backward and know when another has been or will be. So the real meaning of Christmas can come to us in our hearts. We can realize that there has arrived once more the season to rise with. If we make up our minds to do it, we can follow the path of our great predecessors, the great saviors of the world, the great saviors of all times. They all come from the same body, whether we call them Buddha, Jesus, or any other name. They are all beings in the same nature who come among us. And as was said of Jesus, in all things become like unto us, that they may impart to us something of their great knowledge and point us to the path they followed. Always the object of their coming is that we in time may become as they are. Always they leave messages for us which are set down and known as the sayings of the founders of all the great religions. Jesus, for whom the Christian nations celebrate Christmas, was one of a body of perfected men and women. There were others before him. There have been others since, and there will be others yet to come. Did Jesus challenge us to be one of these others by saying that we can do greater things than he did in John chapter 14 verse 12, and by referring to us as gods, John chapter 10 verse 34. What greater gift can we be given at Christmas or at any time than to be shown the path for bringing out what we already have within us, to be as they are and to serve as they serve. Thank you. I'll stop with this. Now it's your turn. Dupree?
Yes.
Would you take the mic, please?
Oh.
Just pull it off from the clock there so it comes down. It's just flip the clock up a little bit and it comes down. The front end of it. There you go.
Oh, sorry, son. On this book here, entitled The Theosophical Movement, I was looking at a quote by HBB, and she states that in a few centuries there would be no sectarian beliefs in either of the great religions, Christianity, Buddhism, Mohammedanism. They will all disappear before the mighty rush of facts. So, even though she's saying in a few centuries more, what possibly could be coming about these facts I'm interested in that will cause these religions to disappear, specifically Christianity, since we're focusing on Christianity, you think?
Well, I think more and more people are wising up. As this student tried to glean from the literature, people are coming to realize and question some of these long-held blind beliefs in virtually all of the religions. We're talking about Christianity today, and we focused on that. But we look at Hinduism and all of the superstition in there, the establishment of the fifth, the untouchables class. This is something that man has concocted and has no real. It has nothing to do with nature, other than us trying to become, powerful or something like that within ourselves. and hold something over others. So, we the people, as we become freer, we hope that will be the case. We're going to start testing all of this stuff against the facts, and a good place to start is the secret doctrine. We keep looking at that, and the ISIS unveiled, and all the literature based on all that. It's there. It got left to us. It's up to us to understand that and pick it up and go with it. And I think as we the people do it, the various religions are going to really fall apart, and we will be of one lip. It said that those who are, we're in the fifth race now, and we've got the five senses. We'll pick up the sixth sense, which is some people already have, and eventually we'll all be the seventh sense, which is the fully spiritual. Those who are left of us, we will all be adept. We will all be perfected. And as this evolves, individual religions are just going by the wayside. You wanted to follow up, and then we'll pass it to John.
Yeah. As a follow-up, this Christianity has been called the New Judaism, basically because it's really come up out of Judaism. Mostly every Christian believes in this idea of the only Son of God. That this God that they believe in just did this act once, and that's just totally denying all those that you referenced who have reached this enlightenment or development. What is it going to take to show them that he wasn't the only one?
That is a tough question when you get down in the Bible Belt, because I've been there and tried. But Jesus said, "No man cometh to the Father but by me." What he really was meaning, not me as the personality, Jesus, but this is the path I'm showing. This is it. And until we get that through to the person on the street, and this is happening because a lot more people are questioning these things. You look on the internet, and virtually, everything a lot of the stuff the student says, in fact, all the stuff the student said, the ideas are out there. I mean, this came from the theosophical literature, but the ideas are out there. People are talking, and once they keep talking, the ideas are going to stick.
But humanity is growing, as you said. The age is changing. It's a transition age. Our minds are enlarging its scope of understanding, and we're questioning belief systems, because if you're 10 or 11 years old and you're questioning what you're being given, it means that you have the inner power to understand and question. The exoteric religions do not allow questioning because they want us to believe what is being said blindly. But this is not, Aquarian age is not for blind belief, is acquiring knowledge. Because if you acquire knowledge and your principles and your ideals are based on principles of nature, you cannot correlate what the religions say with what actually nature shows you. So in this progression of human mind, it is a natural phase we are going through, that the old forms will disintegrate and the new ones are already taking its place. Because even though some of the population today still do not feel comfortable questioning the church dogma, there are a lot of others who are doing so.
Exactly, and all that takes time. The seeds have been sown, and you talked about the Aquarian age, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. That to this student's view, in this student's view anyway, we have thousands of years to go in what's called the Iron Age. but it doesn't have to be all those years. We can make it shorter by bringing this to the forefront. We've been ingrained in this idea as Christians for 1,500 years. This idea is I think maybe a little more than that, 1,800 years, whatever. Whenever the priestcraft had a physical as well as a mental hold over the population, if they didn't like what you did and you didn't change, they got rid of you. And that is not happening so much anymore. I think it's rarely happening. Hopefully it never happens. But it's going to take a toll. It's going to take thousands of years. We haven't changed that much. If you look at 1,000 years, we got cars now. We didn't have them maybe 100 years ago. The material world has changed a lot. But in terms of our basic thinking, it takes a lot of effort to change that. And that's what the whole philosophy is getting at, is to look at our thinking processes so that we think the right thoughts and then we go into the right actions. Okay. Two more.
Well, it's been almost, as you say, 2,000 years since this cover-up, because one can call it a cover-up or this distortion of truth. I'm recalling in Isis Unveiled where HBB mentions how I think it was Jerome, the guy who's credited with writing the Bible in Latin and also in Greek. He goes there and he sees that this term Christ really meant a principle instead of a personality, and they distorted it right there. And so this has been going on. So this cover-up, and one can call it a cover-up in this day, has caused a lot of harm. Reverse that, what good, if any, keeping in mind that karma is in cycles and human beings, things happen according to what human beings have done. If anything, what good has come about as a result of Christianity, you think?
Well, I heard a nun. I can't disagree with the nun, but it does. I guess the social pressures are good and bad on the whole. They're not beneficial to mankind. But if my neighbor goes to church, maybe I think I should go to church too. And if I go there, at least I get the idea that, hey, there's more to me than my flesh. If that's the only thing this student can think of, is that maybe it starts you to thinking, but by the time you start thinking and really start questioning what's being said to you, you're hooked, and it takes maybe lifetimes to get over that being hooked.
Okay, well, specifically, I was referencing Christianity because this is what Christians are celebrating. But the broader question is religions in general, organized religions, since they do have their priests, and they have taken advantage of the people because of their cunnings.
Now they, remember, they all started the same place, okay? And the only difference is man-made, and it's because we get greedy and stuff like that. We the people, and that's the only differences. Now religion itself, would it? This student doesn't see it going out of. In fact, that could become stronger as we become more spiritual, redefining religion a little bit to that same basic thing that the ancients had, which was the one God. Even all over the world, the sun god, they had different names. So this student understands that they all understood that this was one God. So the individual religions are headed for the dustpan of history, although we may not see it in our lifetimes. They're gone. They're good as gone right now, this student thinks. Might take a couple hundred more years to scrape them all away, but I see another student. Did you had one up here? Let Veer go.
Well, I have more of a comment than a question. And the comment was in relation to the last student's general overall perspective, religions, I mean, men came to lead religions. Can we not think that it was an accident that Buddha came and was Buddha, or that Jesus came in and to represent the Christ principle, or that does that much difference between what Jesus stood for in terms of principles and those that Abraham and Mohammed and all of them? They all
They're all from one group of brothers. Yeah, they all had the same message.
right, and they came for a reason, and they came from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And is it not theosophical principles that man's mind was lit up, and that light, that intelligence came from somewhere, and those those religious leaders started religions, but they weren't starting religions. The people that followed them,
You got it.
the people that
Which religion
heard
started
them,
religion? I don't know.
started the religion. Those
Yeah.
people came to speak about the same principles in terms of lighting up, for lack of a better term, man's perspective about himself and his relation to nature. So, I think it's clear now that if we think of this in terms of the human world cycle, that in terms of this Kali Yuga period, going into another period, the need for organized religion is being questioned. The real spiritual aspects of man is becoming apparent, and it's not no longer dormant or dormant, latent. It's coming to the forefront.
Coming to the surface, and
It's
as it
coming
comes
to
to the surface, all that then what man has made is going to be moved out too, and we're going to have the one again, and understand that that these brothers who came didn't come to start a new religion. It's those followers that really started these new religions.
Thank you.
Okay. Kim, did you have a comment? Okay.
I just wanted to make a comment, thank you, that you talked about the ages, but what needs to be understood is that all humanity do not go through the ages at the same time.
Exactly.
We might be going through Kali Yuga in the West, but that doesn't mean Tibet is going through Kali Yuga or Kashmir is going through Kali Yuga. There are spots, HPB makes a statement, that have the golden age at this time.
Exactly. Is it Kali Yuga? The number is 432,000 years or something like that. Yeah, that doesn't mean that we have to spend as individuals or as societies 432,000 years in Kali Yuga. There is a golden age. There are those individuals or groups that are in the golden age right now. Right. It's a lot of power is in our hands, but we won't accept it. But we're getting there. Do we have any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll bring the one more.
Can't end like so quickly. It's just like that. I'd like you to say a little bit more about the Trinity, concept of the Trinity and the Atma, Buddhi, Manas triad.
Okay, last week we did go into that, and basically last talk was about this, the mystery, what is it, mystery of afterlife or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we detailed these right here. This is the lower principles which we see, our personalities and so forth, that make up who other people might think we are. This is the much higher principle. The Atma, which is really no principle at all, it is there. Okay, it shines its light on us. We have to reach up to get to that highest principle. It's not going to reach down to us, but it shines its light. It's available to all. Buddhi and Manas are the other principles. This is called the vehicle of the casket of Atma, and Manas is our lowest principle that stays with the higher Manas, that stays with us from life to life. So as we depart this earth, okay, this part remains, and we assimilate over a number of years, and it depends on our particular situation, whether it might be 25 or 1,500 or 2,000, whatever. But we can go into that a little bit if you wanted to after the discussion. But yes, Atma Buddhi Manas is the real person. It continues on. These parts here drop off, and they are important because, number one, we are letting off skandhas all the time in elementals. We have talks on elementals. That's what we got going on there. We are coming in contact in many, many ways with our environment, with nature. So, and we're influencing nature in these ways, and that stays behind. And guess what? When we decide that we've assimilated all of this in the spiritual level, it's going to come back. Ourselves are going to come back, and we're going to attract these kinds of things back to ourselves. So that, in a kind of a nutshell, was what the speaker talked about for an hour last week. We have one more here and one more here, and we're getting close to the end of our time.
Okay, on the symbolic side of Jesus' life, I came across an article that stated that everything from the birth to the death is what we as individuals will go through also.
Exactly.
The crucifixion, et cetera, et cetera. But
nativity,
right.
Yes.
But then looking at the accepted story that a lot of people today throughout the Christian world are following, the logic from this student's point of view falls apart. There are some that would say that Jesus was God, incarnated, and then in the story, surely you don't kill God by definition of God. If this man was able to raise himself or raise someone else from the dead, surely he could raise himself from the dead, So I look at it as a drama, that's put forth that the people have just looked at just literally and forget the symbolic reasoning behind it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why theosophy came into the world.
Thank you.
Which is one of many times it has. It's been with us forever. We know that.
Just to address the students' questions about Atma Buddhi Manas, well, she asked about the Trimurti, the Trinity. And in all religions, that Trinity is there. It just gets different names. You mentioned it earlier. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Exactly.
For the Christian religion, it's exactly those principles.
Mm-hmm.
In the Indian Vedic principles, it is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And those that represent the cosmic perspective. Brahma's egg being the whole world egg, and everything that exists during the Mahamanvantara, or the age of activity, is within that egg, as you make that circle there, because the human mind cannot truly understand infinity, so we put a circle around it. Brahma then is the creative powers of nature. Then we have Vishnu, which is the preservative powers of nature, and then you have Shiva, which is destructive or regenerative. All those powers were personified in the old religions because they are so metaphysical and so very difficult to understand. They personified them as gods so that people could relate to them and understand them, and also translate that as existing within themselves.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you hit on the reason why the those who knew started this process, and it's gotten taken on a life of its own. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Next week's is on the New Year. We're gonna get together and have a little Christmas fun now. Thank you. More Christmas fun, if you will.